share. Okay, got it. Um, so this is the verse I was supposed to do. Is that correct? 3:18:6.
Maharaj, this verse was done yesterday, Maharaj.
Oh, okay.
The
Well,
next verse, Maharaj.
this was the verse that they put in the that Yugal Kishore put on the thing. So I'll do the next verse. Tam nisarantam salilad anudruto hiranyakesho dviradam yata jasa karaladangsho shani nivason bravid kata kriyam king twasatam vigarhitam tamni sarantam saliladanu druto hiranyakesho dviradam yatajasa karaladam shro shani nivano bravid kata hriyam kim twasatam vigarhitam. So the translation reads, um, are you all seeing this or not?
Yes, Maharaj, we can see this.
Okay. Okay. Uh, the demon who had golden hair on his head and fearful tusks gave chase to the Lord while he was rising from the water, even as an alligator would chase an elephant. Roaring like thunder, he said, are you not ashamed of running away before a challenging adversary? There is nothing reproachable for shameless creatures. So I'll read that again. Uh, the demon who had golden hair on his head and fearful tusks gave chase to the Lord while he was rising from the water, even as an alligator would chase an elephant. Roaring like thunder, he said, are you not ashamed of running away before an adversary? There is nothing reproachable for shameless creatures. All right, so here's Prabhupada's purport. When the Lord was coming out of the water, taking the earth in his arms to deliver it, the demon derided him with insulting words. But the Lord did not care because he was very conscious of his duty. For a dutiful man, there is nothing to fear. Similarly, those who are powerful have no fear of derision or unkind words from an enemy. The Lord had nothing to fear from anyone, and yet he was merciful to his enemy by neglecting him. Although apparently he fled from the challenge, it was just to protect the earth from calamity that he tolerated Hiranyaksha's deriding words. So here's the verse again. Tam nisarantam saliladanudruto hiranyakesho dviradam yata jasa karaladam shro shani nisvano bravid gata hriyam kim tvasatam vigarhitam. The Lord who had golden, the demon rather, who had golden hair on his head and fearful tusks, gave chase to the Lord while rising from the water, even as an alligator would chase an elephant. Roaring like thunder, he said, are you not ashamed of running away before a challenging adversary? There is nothing reproachable for shameless creatures. Okay, so this is further into the pastime of Lord Boar or Shukra to fight with Hiranyaksha. Of course, we know how this winds up, that in spite of all of Hiranyaksha's great words of commanding power and so-called righteous indignation, he winds up smashed by the Supreme Lord. And later on, his brother Hiranyakashipu will also be destroyed by also the Supreme Lord, which is kind of, you know, what happens. Uh, we know that this is the ultimate goal of, or the ultimate end of all these kinds of things, that no matter what the demons think or say, no matter how much big words they use and however proud they are, however strong they are never in the same league as the Supreme Lord. So they will ultimately always be destroyed. So this particular, section is about the demons fighting, or at least in this case, here in Yaksha fighting with the Supreme Lord. Are you seeing that or not? I'm not sure what's happening at this point.
Maharaj, the screen share is gone. We can see only your face, Maharaj.
Okay, you don't see the screen share. Okay, so let me try this. Now, do you see? No, you still see only
Yes,
me.
Maharaj. Now we can see the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, I've never done PowerPoint this way, so I'm not sure how it'll work out. Now, one of the things that comes to my mind with all this is, first of all, we wonder what a demon is. And of course, we have this verse from Bhagavad Gita, the 16th chapter, Divine and Demoniac Natures, Dumbo, Darpo, Bimanas, Cha, Kroda, Parushameva Cha, Agyanam Cha, Jatasya, Partha Sampadam Asurim, pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, ignorance. These are qualities belonging to those of demoniac nature, O son of Prita. So demons have this, kind of nature to them. Here, of course, we have this fight between Lord Bor and Hiranyaksha on the causal waters. So, or the, I guess, Garba waters, actually, it must be. So, demons are full of themselves. Demons are, completely blind to the needs and wants of others, but they are totally focused on the needs and wants of themselves. Now, we kind of contrast this to the kind of Christian look at demons. We think, from modern religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all think of demons as someone who just is hateful and destructive and is simply just wanting to destroy everybody and everything. But actually, uh, this notion makes it seem like a demon is someone that's very, very much unlike we are, someone that's nothing like us. And therefore, we can feel, oh, that's a demon. And we have to watch out for him and destroy him if we can. But we are nothing like such demons. But what we find is that demoniac people are only people who are committed to their own sense gratification. And as they get more and more committed to their own sense gratification, they become more and more destructive to others. That's the nature of being committed to your own sense gratification. So this is certainly the characteristic or nature of both Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, his brother. They were committed to their own material happiness. They were committed to their own material prestige. So as we just read, what are the qualifications or qualities of demons? They are prideful, they are arrogant, they are full of false ego or conceit. They're always angry and they're harsh. And also, they're ignorant of so many things. So, all these are Sanskrit words, Dambo, Darpo, Bimanas, Kroda. So, all these words describe the characteristics of the demon. And Hiranyaksha was all of these following qualifications. And this comes from a person being committed to sense gratification. This is why a person is. So, in these times, the Supreme Lord appeared. In this case, he appeared in the form of a boar. But this form of a boar was not recognized by Hiranyaksha as the supreme. Rather, Hiranyaksha simply thought that the boar form was some kind of unusual creature that was going to soon be killed by him. Of course, this was not true, but this is what this is what Hiranyaksha thought. As a matter of fact, we heard earlier that he had approached Varuna and he wanted to fight with Varuna, but Varuna knew that he was no match for Hiranyaksha. So he said, I think that I am too old. Rather, you should try to find Vishnu. And if you fight Vishnu, surely you will be slain by him. And instead of being fearful, this demon Hiranyaksha became enlivened. He thought, oh, there's somebody who could actually give me a run for my money. I want to meet this person right away. So this is what Hiranyaksha did, and eventually that led him to discover Lord Boar, as Lord Boar was lifting the Earth Bhumandala from the waters of cosmic devastation. By the way, as a side note, many devotees have made the point that Lord Boar did not lift the Earth planet from the waters of devastation or Bhugola, but he lifted rather, uh, uh, I mean, Bhugola, he lifted Bhumandala, which is the Earth plane or the great disk from the waters of devastation. So, when uh, demons want to fight with God, they want to destroy him. And of course, here we've just read that Hiranyaksha felt that, he had harmed some of Hiranyaksha's relatives and now he was going to kill. And this would destroy religion. It would destroy the sages and the brahmanas who worship the Supreme Lord. And he would do this all with his physical strength. This was the thinking of Hiranyaksha. But modern demons usually don't think quite like this. Rather, they think that they will destroy God by their powerful philosophical words. So that's what they actually think. And this is, of course, their misunderstanding. Uh, so, are you all seeing this again or not, or did it? Are
Yes, Maharaj, we can see.
Okay. So there are many, many modern atheists. They create atheistic philosophies, and they're not trying to kill God by some kind of physical martial arts, but they are trying to kill God by their words and their clever speech. So they create philosophies that do not connect with God in any way. They're very proud of their learning, and they are also popular among some people for some time, but inevitably, as time goes forward, their philosophies are buried by new atheistic philosophers who say something different. Of course, if we study even Western philosophy, our philosophy of the Western world, we find that only not so long ago was this philosophy very, very strongly atheistic. It's gotten more and more atheistic as time goes on. So at one time, philosophers at least had some sense of the supreme. They may have had some strange understanding of the supreme, but they still had some sense that there was a supreme. Whereas now it's common to say that there is no God and that the world is some kind of random occurrence, and the universe is huge. It has no particular focus on human beings, and therefore we are left to our own devices. And usually we learn that only humans have the ability to decide what the world is really about. What is the world about? What's the purpose of the world? Well, there's no God. but rather humans will decide what the purpose of the world is. And without humans, there's no purpose. So, unfortunately, many of these great atheistic philosophers, they lived tragic lives themselves and died either as suicides or from a mental breakdown. And we'll talk a little bit more about one or two of them who did, who are foundational modern philosophers. But before we do, you know, there is just a few possibilities for where everything could come from. It either comes from God or Krishna, or it comes from matter, which is actually another way of saying Shakta or the energy. So some people say that the material energy has a form, and that's Durga Devi. That's in India, you'll find that, you know. So this is sort of matter worshipped in an incarnation. But more modern people think of the universe as the supreme, which is the impersonal understanding of matter, which matter is everywhere and it's not considered a person. So we have this kind of incarnated and disincarnated version of matter. So besides that, there's Brahman. Some say that the supreme uh, of everything is Brahman, and the whole universe emanates from that. The Buddhists say that the universe emanates from the void, and then there are those who say that the universe emanates from Shiva. So these are various types of views that people have about where the supreme, or I mean, where everything comes from. What is the source of everything? And for most part, our modern materialists say that everything comes from matter or the void. Though even the concept of Brahman is not too well established. And we'll talk a little bit about how this comes from our own philosophy, from our own books in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance. As we just read, the Bhagavad Gita explains that, the qualities of demons. We just read those in the 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But we also hear in the 17th verse of I'm sorry, the 15th verse of the 17th chapter, we have this following. Um, we have, let me get it up here. I'm used to doing this a different way. So here is Bhagavad Gita 7:15, namam duskritino mudha prapadyanti naradama maya ya parhita jnana ashuram bhavam ashrita. So this is the kind of demon that Hiranyaksha was. But there are many who fall in the same category in our modern world. In fact, uh, a large and very vocal group of these kind of demons make themselves very prominent on television, on the internet, on forums, on podcasts, et cetera, in the news. So what are they? Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So the Ashuram Bhavam Ashrita are the demons who are keen to destroy the supreme. They are uh, imbibing very deeply the mood of the asura. Then we have the Maya Parhita Jnana. These are the more intellectuals who come up with these various theories, who who mislead people in general by their twisting of words and word jugglery, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have those who are here called Naradamas, those who have some pious resources as a result of their past pious work, but they're misusing them for materialistic purposes. And finally, you have the, Mudha, who has no resources and is just too stupid to do anything except for enjoy his senses in a very gross way. So this is what we find a lot of in our material world. And this Krishna describes in seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But then, of course, he mentions the more pious people, Chaturvidha Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritino Arjuna Arto Jigyasu Artarti Gyani Chabharatarshava, that there are four kinds of pious men who render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who's searching after knowledge for the absolute truth. So these are people who are actually searching after the absolute truth, and they may not have gotten very far, but they are pious because they appreciate that there's a supreme, and they're willing to try to change their behavior to please the supreme in some kind of way, which is what the previous group in verse 715, they would never do that. So these are the four pious men. Now, what's interesting is that going to now our ninth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we'll find yet another verse here, which is this verse, 9:15. Jnana yagena chapyanye yajanto mamupasate ekat vena pratak vena bahuda vishvato mukham. That others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. So this is a look at other kinds of persons who are not demons, but they are people who have some kind of outlook about the Supreme, although that outlook of the Supreme might be quite, you know, not very well developed, I would say. That's probably the word I would use. So if we go back to this slide here, so we were showing this before, that do you see it or you don't see it? I'm trying to guess here.
Yes, Maharaj.
I
Okay.
can see Maharaj.
Okay. So we hear that there are others, some who worship the Supreme as one without a second, diverse in many, and in the universal form. So the people who worship Brahman are the one without a second. The universal form are those who worship the Supreme in the material universe. They see matter as being the supreme. So that's the Vishvato Mukham, and the Bahudak, the, what is it? The Pritak Vena Bahuda, that's the word that is used in Bhagavad Gita. They worship diverse versions of the Supreme, like Shiva or Durga or other demigods or whatever. So they see that as supreme. And of course, the devotees, they see Krishna as supreme. And that is described in the 19th chapter of Bhagavad Gita here as 1913. So let me change again the stop share, start share. This is much easier to do with vmix. Anyway, Mahatmanas tu mam parta daivam prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutatim avyayam. So this is chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita. And first we hear that the great souls who are not deluded are under the protection of the divine nature. They're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and exhaustible. So this is the highest level. This is the Mahatmas, the devotees. And then Krishna goes on to say about them, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha brataha namasyantastamam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me in devotion. So this is, again, the great souls, the devotees, who they may or may not be perfected yet, but they understand that Krishna is the goal of everything, and they understand that they need to serve Krishna to become purified. But beneath this group is what we just read, the four kinds of pious men, the Arta, the Artarti, the Jigyasur, and the Jnani. So those four are not quite at the level of devotees yet. They're on the way because they're pious men. They surrender unto Krishna. But some of them are like the one Arta, the one who needs some kind of help. Artarti, the one who needs money, the Jigyasur, the inquisitive, and the Jnani, the one who is actually looking for something deeper. These four are headed in the direction of becoming devotees, but they're not there yet. Now, beneath those, we go to where we just were. This one who engages in the no, let's go here. Where was it here? Yeah, this one. Others who engage in sacrifice by cultivation of knowledge, by worship of the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many, and the universal form. Prabhupada says the lowest of these in the purport are those who try to worship God as themselves, you know, Ekat Vena, which is here listed in oneness. So they think that they are God and they're worshiping themselves. Prabhupada says it is a kind of God worship, but it's a low form of God worship. At least a person in this Ekat Vena category is recognizing that they are not the body. But of the three, this is the lowest. The next higher up is the Pritak Vena Bahuda, which is those who worship various demigods and imagined understandings of God. And then finally, the Vishvato Mukham, which is the highest of the three, is the person who worships the universal form. The universe, in understanding that there is some divine intellect behind it. So that's the higher one. Then you have below them the Pratyek Vena, and finally at the bottom you have the Ekat Vena, or the one who imagines himself to be God and worships the Brahman, thinking he is the Brahman. So this is the structure. This is mentioned in Buri John's Surrender Unto Me, and I thought I would bring it up here because this is a kind of a classification of different individuals based on what they see as the source of everything. That little slide that I had before, those who see Krishna or God as the source, they are the Mahatmas. They're on the top. Beneath the Mahatmas, the next class, are these four kinds of pious men who are, you know, the Arta, the Artarti, the Jigyashur, and the Jnani. And they see the Supreme, but they are not ready yet to fully surrender to the Supreme. They're still looking for some material happiness. And below them, then we have the person who worships the Vishvatamuk, the universal form. And below him are the people who worship various demigods. And below that person are the Ekat Venas, those who try to become one with the Lord in Brahman. And below them are the demons, as we just read, those people who are the knowledge is stolen by illusion, those who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, and those who are lowest of mankind, and finally the mudhas, or the totally unintelligent. So this is kind of a look, and we see that we have these various demoniac types of people in our world, and we have various worshipers in our world. And we see that these demoniac types try to destroy the Supreme, and they do it largely by trying to destroy him with various philosophical words or various presentations of various kinds. I want to stop right at this moment and see if there are any questions, and if there are, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I have another a little section to add to this as we go forward. So, anybody have any questions so far about what I've tried to present here?
Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj,
Yes.
can you hear me? Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, I
Maharaj,
can
yeah.
hear you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. It was such an amazing perspective you gave for us, Maharaj, to look at the modern demons as well as, the old ones. Thank you so much. It's always so inspiring to hear you, Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is, when we talk about Maya, Apahrita, Jnana, and Asura,
Uh-huh.
both are almost the same, isn't it, Maharaj?
Well, it's stated somewhere that in one sense the Maya Parhitagana is like the Brahmana gone bad, and the Ashuram Bhavamashritam is like the Kshatriya gone bad, and the Naradama is like the Vaishya gone bad, and the Mudha is like the Shudra gone bad. So these are kind of like the antithesis of what a person should have developed, or what their character should be according to the Varnashram system. So, in other words, the Maya Aprita Jnana, those are people who are intellectual, and through their intellect, they try to confuse people, and they try to avoid God. And because they are so careful and they're so intellectual, many people are misled by them. Whereas the Ashuram Bhavamashritam, those are people who are like, they have a martial spirit. They make big propaganda, and they try to advocate for various atheistic viewpoints and atheistic types of both philosophy, and they advocate for atheistic political schemes, like communism and things like that. There's so many political schemes that are atheistic in their nature, but they are not so intellectual themselves. They are simply pushing it forward. And then the, Naradamas are people who have money and they have influence in society, but they're not politically, very active, and they're not very intellectual. But whatever facilities they have, they use them in the wrong way. And so that's at least how I understand it.
Maharaj, that helps me so much. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the wonderful class. This is your servant
Hare Krishna.
Satsutadas. Prabhuji, Maharaj, so you were mentioning about Varahadev lifting Bhu Mandal, not Bhugol. Can you just expand on that, Maharaj?
Yeah, I've heard two devotees that have, explained about this. One of them is Ganesham Govinda in uh, Australia. He gave a whole discourse on the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining, the whole system. That I think it's many devotees have a confusion between Bhugola and Bhumandala. Both are the earth, but one is the more complete earth. Bhumandala is as said, it's the circular um, entire disk that runs through the center of the material universe. And at the center of Bhumandala is Jambudweep. So there are 7 islands that were carved out by Priyavrata's chariot, and they're water and mountain, water and, well, not water, but liquid and mountain, liquid and mountain. And between each of those circular islands is a circular moat of some kind of liquid. In one place it's water, and other place it's ghee, and other places liquor, et cetera, et cetera. So that's Bhumandala. And at the very center, in the target of the bullseye, is Jambudweep, and there is Mount Meru. And Jambudweep is subdivided into 9 varshas, and the bottom varsha of Jambudweep is called Bart Varsha. And Bharatvarsha is itself also subdivided into 9 further segments. And one of them is Bharat And in Bharat that's where Bhugola, or the Earth planet that we know of, is actually situated. Now, somehow or other, these various different aspects are connected to one another. But unless one is able to travel with special mystic potency, one cannot do that. However, even Arjuna and Yudhishthir did visit the larger earth plane. They visited some of these other varshas, Hari Varsha and Ilavrata Varsha. So these other varshas are accessible from our planet, but not by usual travel. And so the large earth is flat, and the globe Earth is much, much, much smaller, and it's only a piece of the larger picture. And this Ganesham Govinda, he gave a talk about it, and he explained that from his reading of fifth canto is definitely the Earth plane, or Bhumandala, that was lifted by Varaha, and not the not by Varaha, and not the Earth globe. And then also just recently, I was listening to what's his name now, Vrindavan Priya, in the group out with Vaisheshika and in California. He also was discussing the same thing, and he has that same opinion that although we do see these paintings of Varaha with the Earth globe in his tusk, it's actually the Earth plane that he lifted, and not the Earth globe. So, at any rate, that's my basis upon which I make that statement.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, looks like these are the questions, Maharaj.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So I've got another 15 minutes. And what I thought that I would segue to is discussing some of, these atheistic philosophers, that we see that are attempting, as you probably know, or maybe you're aware of, that in the news media, in intellectual circles, in academia, and also on various podcasts and the internet, various talking heads are really putting forward this theory of atheism. They claim that God is not a good theory, that God and teaching about God is harmful to children, and that trying to believe what various religions teach in their various books is akin to voodoo or to some kind of pre-scientific magical um, mythology, etc. And this is not a new trend, but it's gotten very, very loud and very, very vocal more recently. One of the first philosophers who really pushed out the atheistic viewpoint, one of them, of course, was Friedrich Nietzsche. So he was a German-speaking philosopher, and he, put forward probably one thing that most people have heard about Nietzsche is his famous statement that God is dead. So that's what a lot of people have heard. Now, what Nietzsche was trying to explain was that he felt that the world had outgrown this pre-scientific um, mythology that religions have given us. The Bible describes many things. Some of them seem fantastic to our a modern way of looking at things. And of course, the Vedas also, they say things that sound fantastic according to our modern way of thinking about things. And so Nietzsche said that, basically, um, he wrote in the gay philosophy, I think that's the name of it, but it doesn't refer to homosexual. It refers just to the joyful philosophy, which wasn't very joyful, I don't assume, because Nietzsche himself didn't have a happy life, but at any rate, he put forward the idea that who are we? We have, with our intelligence, gradually come to realize that God doesn't exist. We've killed him with our knives. And where will we hide our bloody hands? Must we have also become gods simply to be capable of doing the task? So, what will come next? So this is kind of Nietzsche's explanation. And this sounds very much like what, our Hiranyaksha was trying to do. Of course, these people were doing it in words, thinking that, well, now we have become intellectually sophisticated, we've become scientifically careful, and now we can no longer believe these traditional mythologies. So now what is left to us? So we've killed God, like it or not, we did it. Maybe we didn't start out thinking we would do that, but we have done it because of our keen intellect. Now God is dead and we can't accept him any longer. But this led to this idea now that man is the measure of everything, because if there's no God, then there's no source of everything. And we see that that's quite prominent in modern scientific thinking. The idea that we're on a little rock around a small star in the backwater of a great universe in a non-important area, and things go on. And the universe didn't have us in mind. It was all created by blind evolution in some way or another. And therefore, what happens to human beings is good and bad because there's no God. So that's why bad things happen to humans. It happens because the universe doesn't particularly look out for humans. So if it happens to step on their toes, the universe wasn't hateful to human beings. It just didn't look out for them. And therefore, the only solution, therefore, is to embrace science very, very strongly. And every problem that we have will one day be conquered by science, and we will live in, um, flying cars and live in magic kingdoms, and all diseases will be gone. And if we have a problem with one of our eyes, we can grow another one. Or if we want to have a baby that's a different hair color, whatever, we can choose that. We can do whatever we want. This is the future. And, some are even saying eventually we'll discover that it's better to be a robot or better to be in a computer, and we will stop having human bodies altogether. We'll upload. So this is all the fertile mental, vomit of many people who have no real thinking about how things really work. They are just guessing about many things, and they're creating this scenario, this great scenario. And it's, one of the people who started it was Friedrich Nietzsche. Another one, of course, was a man named, what's his name? Uh, Maybe it'll come to me in a minute. There was another philosopher who dealt with sociology. In fact, he's considered, Pierre Auguste Comte, Compt. So Comte was another one who felt that just as there's evolution of various life forms, so there's evolution of social structures, and so there's evolution of thinking. And to Comte, he thought that, early humans believed in many gods, and then they evolved to the point where they believed in one God, and then they evolved past God, and they believed that now there were no gods, and therefore this was the highest, and he called his philosophy positivism. So Comte, in his later life, was so enthused by his own philosophy that he tried to commit suicide several times. And then later, also, our Friedrich Nietzsche was so advanced in his thinking that eventually he developed a mental instability and had to be institutionalized. And he lived a life where his sister eventually got control of him, and she kind of used him like someone might go to Disney World and see the orcas or something like that. She would rent people. She would ask money, and they could come and see her famous brother who had written all this atheistic philosophy and everything. And of course, from Nietzsche, then later we had the segue into existentialism and then structuralism. And, it went from one thing to another, various permutations of atheistic philosophy where God is not a piece of the philosophy at any point, that something else is the source of everything. Yet we see that God didn't die for a lot of people. There's still Christians that believe in God. There's still Jews that believe in God. There's still Muslims that believe in God. We still believe in God. And that maybe God died for Nietzsche or died for certain atheists is not a thing for us. And of course, even more recently than that, we have what have sometimes been called the four horsemen of new atheism, which is Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, um, Richard Dawkins, and Christopher Hitchens. So these four people have, made a big propaganda that, only mentally crippled people or mentally immature people follow religious thinking. And mostly, if you read what they have to say, they're criticizing God on theological grounds. They're not proving that science is more powerful. But what they are saying is that they can't believe in a God because, of various what they consider to be mistakes in the way that bodies are designed, et cetera, because they think that if God was perfect, he would make a world where every design, whether it was a human body or an animal body or an insect body, where every design would optimize the lifetime and the happiness or the best interest of that living creature. But what they don't realize is that's not the nature of the world that we live in. The nature of the world is to provide not only what we want, but also the punishment for the things we've done wrong. So the material world is nicely designed to not only offer us the results of our good karma and the results of our desires, but it also figures in and offers us the results of our bad karma, of our sinful actions. And therefore, we suffer. We have bad eyesight, we get cancer, we wind up with some kind of COVID or something like that. All these things are examples of how the material world delivers our bad karma to us. Of course, karma is a big subject and it's a complex subject, but I'm just throwing that in here because at least a good portion of these arguments by new atheists have to do with why they can't believe in a God, because God, there is war, there is crime, there is disease, there are children dying at young ages. All these things suggest that there's no one at the controls. That's what they think, that because these things are there, that there could not be anyone at the controls. And this is their thinking. And of course, they think that therefore we have to bite the bullet, like Nietzsche said, and realize that there's no God, that he's dead. We've killed him with our intelligence. And now we're living in a world after God. And we have to use our own mental thinking to come up with what we should do next. What is the world about if it's not about God? Of course, so that's kind of a quick nickel tour of our modern atheism and how people relate to in the modern world the nature of God. You know, some of course are theistic because that's their nature, and they also have an intellectual understanding of why they believe in God. Some are believers of God, but they're not particularly intellectual. And then you have atheists, those who disbelieve in God because they hate God or they were abused by the material nature in some way, and they take it out by disbelieving in God. Or they are these kind of philosophers that like to spin big webs so that people can get trapped in the webs, and then they feel satisfied. So again, I'll pause here for a few more questions before we wrap up, because we're at 9:14. Hare Krishna, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Shyam Kishore Prabhu has a question. Prabhuji, please proceed.
Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance, the dust of your lotus feet.
Hare
My question is that sometimes when we read these sections of Bhagavatam, like the fifth canto, the creation, so on and so forth, how, when we read, how can we use it to nourish our devotion, increase our attraction to Krishna?
Well, I would answer that question by the fact that we live in a modern scientific world, and we've grown up, all of us, even if we grew up in India these days, we grew up with, learning about rockets and science, and learning about uh, geological plates rolling over one another. We learned about, astronomy and the way it's taught the modern day. We've heard, Darwin's theory of evolution. We've heard about chemicals. And so when we read 10th canto, it sounds very strange to us. But I think it's important that devotees read and understand, at least as best they can. Not everybody will and not everybody can, but I think many more can than probably do at this point in time. And there are devotees who are doing explanations of the fifth canto. So to understand the nature of God, of Krishna, that's why we have 9 cantos before the 10th canto. The 10th canto describes what Krishna does. The 9 cantos before the 10th canto explains who Krishna is, that he's the Supreme Lord. What does it mean to be the Supreme Lord? How does he interact with his devotees? How does he create the planetary systems? How did he create life? What is the nature of the protection of the Lord? What are the manvantaras? How does the Lord actually create desires? How do those desires pan out in the material world? How is the material world destroyed? How can one reach the Supreme Lord at the very end? So all these things are described in Srimad Bhagavatam before you get to the pastimes of the Lord. And then when you read about Krishna, and his love with the gopis and their various pastimes, you don't think this is just some Indian boy from 50 centuries ago playing around like Indian boys do today. That this is not that. It is the Supreme Lord, and what's going on is the interplay of the very origin of the universe in a very mysterious, but also not so unstraightforward way. There's some very easy to understand things there. So, what is the issue is that we find that there are these structures that we don't have direct perception of, which are mentioned in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have perception of Bhugola, the earth globe, but we don't have perception of Bhumandala, the earth plane. And in our day and time, most people don't have perception of Bhumandala. But there was a time when devotees could go to these other places, and they could go there if they had the right consciousness. But whether we see it or not, these planes of existence exist. And there is no more solid evidence for our modern view of astronomy than there is for any other view, whether it's the Christian creation method or the universe or the Vedic universe. Of course, the Vedic universe is quite well detailed. But again, what we recognize is that we live in a world of which we only see a small slice. Now, whether you're a Krishna conscious devotee or you're a modern atheistic scientist, you will agree with that we don't see the whole world. We see only a slice of it. The electromagnetic radiation only goes from, infrared through ultraviolet. And beyond that, we can't see anything more. We can only hear up to about 20,000 cycles per second. And beyond that, we can't hear anything more. We only see things at a fairly certain size, and things below that size we no longer see. We find that there are things that happen so quickly that we cannot perceive what's going on unless we get a high-speed camera to take 2,000 frames a second or more, so that we can see what's going on in slow motion. Similarly, there are things that are going on so slowly that we also don't see them. There are things that are going on so far away that we don't see them. And so there are a number of ways that we begin to make the case that we only see a slice of the world. We don't see the whole world. So the question is, what's going on in the slices that we don't see? Now, the scientists have one group of speculations for what's going on in those slices that we don't see. But the Bhagavatam has another set of information about what's going on in those slices that we don't see. And we can see that the explanation of the Bhagavatam touches on so many more aspects of the world that we do see than the scientific view. The scientific view specializes in a certain particular subset of explaining the world of what's around us, but the more narrow-minded, atheistic, reductionistic, materialistic view of science has to simply ignore or put the do not look at stamp on so much of the world around us. So therefore, we have to understand, well, which view makes more sense, which view answers more questions, and which view is more possible or more probable. The world scientific view of the atheists and the materialists, the scientific worldview of their making, has a strong emphasis on laws as if these laws are final. But there's no proof that shows that these laws are final. In fact, there's certainly a lot of evidence that the material world works kind of like a virtual reality, that the material world has laws and they are there. Most of the time they're there, but they can be bypassed just like you can in a computer game or one of these video computer games that there is something that looks like gravity in there, but it's not really gravity. It's the engineering that was done by various software developers, and they created something that acts like gravity. And if you're a software developer, you could turn that gravity off, And similarly, the demigods are like the engineers of this universe, and they can usually, they allow things to work the way that the scientists understand them, but they can also bypass things if they want. The demigods can travel without machines. They can travel without all these other things. They can visit those areas of the universe that we don't see. The modern scientists also say there's a big portion of the universe that we don't see. In modern astronomy, there's the idea that 96% of the universe is completely impalpable to us, that there is what they call dark matter, which comprises, I don't know, 30 some odd percent, but there's dark energy, which comprises about 60 or 70%. So that leaves, basically just about 5% of the universe as what the scientists in the astronomical modern view say that is perceivable to us. So what's going on in the rest of it? We don't know. So both worldviews talk about a world that we don't see. Both worldviews have to resort to explaining things that we don't have any direct evidence or essential perception of. However, when we learn about Krishna consciousness, we learn that karma is very real. We can watch it happening in the world around us every day. We see it constantly in play. And there's a lot of reason to believe that reincarnation also is there, because they've done so many studies of people who either remember their past lives as children or can be made to remember them under hypnosis. And then these various accounts can be verified. So there's reason to believe that. There's reason to believe that people can do what amounts to magical activities by various mystic powers. There's enough accounts of that going on. And even in our other Western world, we have accounts of people being cured in a miraculous way, which makes no sense according to scientific various theories. So all this is there. And I think gradually, bit by bit, devotees should make an effort to approach the fifth canto and other similar literatures, try to understand them. There are devotees now on the internet and other places who are giving various accounts of what's going on in the fifth canto and how it relates to the world that we see and how it relates to, say, modern thinking. And in this way, we gradually challenge our modern scientific so-called conceptions, because many of them are simply articles of faith. That's the problem. You can have scientists have faith, Christians have faith, we have faith. In fact, everyone has faith. The question is faith in what? Scientists have faith in laws. Their final and absolute faith is faith in laws. We have faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Christians have faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They may understand him a little bit more little differently than we do, but nevertheless, it's the same being. So, any rate, everybody has faith in something, even if you're a total skeptic. There you have faith that there's nothing that can be known and no action that's going to be better than any other action. So you have faith in that. So whatever you have, whatever you motivates you to do anything you do means you have some faith in it, because as we just said, the world is just a slice. So everyone just sees a slice. And whether they consciously recognize it or not, we have to base what we do on just seeing a slice of the world. We can never see the whole thing. So therefore, we have to have some kind of faith. Atheists have faith that there can't be a God. Modern scientists have faith that there's just these rocks floating around, these burning hydrogen, helium balls. The Christians have faith in the Supreme, and we have faith in the Supreme. The Buddhists have faith in the void. And so you have all these various kinds of faith, but everyone has faith. All right, so maybe I've said a little bit towards your question about the fifth canto. Are there any final questions before we wrap up for this session?
Maharaj, looks like these are the questions we have for
Okay.
today. Maharaj, I really like the point when you said the atheists, most of the times when they try to prove their arguments, they use theological mistakes or theological faults rather than proving through science. That was amazing, Maharaj.
Well, I mean, I've just seen it over and over again that they don't use scientific arguments to debunk God. They use theological arguments, and it's bad theology at that. And unfortunately, it's based on some kinds of narrow-minded religious views, which certainly do need to be debunked. And I'm also on board there. That there are certain religious views that need to go because they're just wrong. But if one understands religion or spiritual life through the eyes of Bhagavatam, which is much more broad and much more detailed in its explanation, then you don't have you don't get caught on those same barbs that you do when atheists talk. We know why there good things happen to bad people. We know why there's evil in the world. We know why the material world appears to be happenstance, or it appears to be random, or it appears to be deformed in some ways, but none of these are actually true. There's a reason why everything exists the way it does.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. We are very, very grateful for this wonderful, inspiring class and your association, Maharaj.
Where is our Yugal Kishore? I'm trying to find if he's in this group somewhere. Or has he got to do something else during this time? All right, so we'll say our obeisances to all of you. Thank you all very much for tuning in, and much special thanks and credit goes to our Yugal Kishore, who is such a shining beacon of preaching everywhere. One day I hope to be something a little bit like him. So all glories to all of your services, and thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. His Holiness Chandrasekhara Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
jai.
Be sure to send me the YouTube link for this when you get it uploaded.
Yes, Maharaj, we will.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Very grateful.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare.